Hello everyone, PinkCast here, and I'm bringing you a really fun and exciting video, one that I've been thinking about for a long time now. So this game, to me, is all about improvement, self-improvement, you getting better over time the more you play. And you'll find that when you play this game over time that you hit skill walls, okay? And at these skill walls, you realize you're just not getting better, and there's others above you, and you're just confused at how to get to that next level. Well, this video is going to show you those levels, which are set in 6 phases of progression, all the way from the beginner to the elite. We're going to have tips for everyone, and I feel like I can provide this kind of video because I've made this transition over probably a year and a half or 2. So let's get right to the first stage here. We have the Noob. And this is typically from levels 1 through 30. You ground walk most of the game. And what do I mean by that if you don't know what I mean? Well, a lot of pros never walk on the ground unless they're like really sure that no one's looking at them and they're not going to get shot. So ground, and usually the pros fly from one place to another because movement is so much faster when you're flying. So you're looting more efficiently, you're getting to your fights more efficiently, and you're also getting in better positions faster so that you can control the fight. And so ground walking is typically a no-no, even when you're looting. If you don't know what I mean by this, do watch my beginner to pro video. It goes over that and teaches you how to move efficiently like a pro. Now, the next thing on this list is you duel often. And what do I mean by that? When you go into a fight, you don't think about how you can put yourself in a position to win the fight and make sure you're set to win the fight. You kind of just see the person go for the fight. You might be walking one-on-one. You might be walking 1 versus 2, 1 versus 3. You're just taking whatever fight's out there. Not really thinking about it, just trying to focus on, you're kind of maybe stressing out, your anxiety's going, your adrenaline's going, and you're just trying to get in that fight. You're really focused on fighting because it gives you that thrill, but you're really just taking any fight that comes at you, and that's probably one of the reasons why you are losing a lot of your fights, okay? And the reason is professionals or people at the higher stages of progression, they don't take a fight unless they know they're gonna win, and particularly the professional stages and onwards in this video. Okay, what do I mean by that? For example, myself, I don't take a fight. I don't sit there and commit to a fight, particularly one-on-one, unless I think I have a really good odds ratio of winning it, or like a likelihood of winning it. Like, oh, okay, maybe I'm 75% chance to win this fight. Or I just have no damn chance because I'm trapped in a corner and I gotta take the fight, okay? Which is not a position I want to be in. So it's really about smarter playing. And when you're in the beginning, you're just trying to, get familiarized with the game. That's definitely not on your mind. But that is definitely one thing y'all should be working on, okay? I'm not ignorant to the fact that most people who watch these videos are probably in this area or this phase and the next phase. So one tip I have for you is think about your fights. Don't just take a fight, the first fight that comes at you. Think about it. Are you going to get third-partied if you take this fight? Are you in a nice position? Do you have a lot of hard cover around you? Do you have a better gun than the other person? Like, all these factors weigh in. Put yourself in good odds to win the fight. Okay. Now, in this level, you're probably playing infrequently, and this is probably the main reason why you are in this stage, because you just don't play enough, because this game is like a role-playing game. As in, the more you play, the more you improve in 6 mastery areas. And this is in my beginner to pro video. You have bad aim, probably because you don't play enough to work on your aim. You have no movement skills, like we said. You're probably just ground walking most of the time. You're not flying cover to cover safely. You're not. Maybe you're using a sword to walk, which is great, but maybe you're not. Terrible use of builds. You might not even know how to use build or what it does, or you might not even use it in a single game. You don't have any map awareness because you're just picking up the game. That stuff doesn't come really quickly, particularly map awareness skills. No tactics, because that's way beyond, you're not even worried about tactics. You might not even know what that means right now with me saying that. And if you're curious, that means like, okay, your close range skills and on how to position, maneuver, fight to increase the likelihood that you win, and long range tactics, also your squad tactics. And so there's a lot going on there. You probably don't have any teamwork skills too, because you're just coming into this VR world maybe for the first time. Maybe you don't play first-person shooters, so you don't realize how important teamwork skills are in a battle royale. Maybe you've never even played a battle royale. That could have been to the no tactics part. So there's a lot you need to learn, and this game is really deep, and that's why I love it. Now you can improve in each one of those skill areas, obviously. So what do you need to work on? Well, it's easy for me to say work on everything, but the reality is not everyone has time to play 3 hours or more every single day, okay? So you're probably playing an hour in between lunch or something like that, or with all the other busy things you do in your life. You're probably just playing, infrequently. So I really think that if you're in this area, you have to use your time efficiently, because clearly you're not playing 5 hours a day. If you were playing 5 hours a day, you wouldn't be in levels 1 through 30. So learn 2 weapons because you don't have much time. It takes a lot of time to learn a weapon. I spend an hour on 1 weapon every single week in the training part, just in the training part. I'm not even counting the time I use it in game. Each weapon is that I'm planning to use each week, I spend 1 hour on, for real. So I know you don't have that kind of time, so learn weapons, only 2 weapons, so that you can put more time into it. It's like if you spread your time across several weapons, you're not going to be as good as if you were if you only chose 2 weapons and stuck to those 2 weapons. Okay, so that is a really important one. So what should you choose? You should choose a long or mid-range gun and a close-range weapon. What options do you have for long or mid-range guns? Many. You can take an AWP, which is maybe not the best noob gun. So I would say something like an M60, an AKM, or a RFB, an assault rifle. The reason why I say an assault rifle is because the assault rifles, if you don't know, have longer range than the submachine guns. The submachine guns have generally a higher time to kill, as in they kill enemies faster, but they have a worse bullet drop-off, as in they do worse damage over a long distance. So if you're able to master an assault rifle that's good, a good assault rifle, one of the ones I mentioned, then you can ignore a sniper rifle and you can ignore the submachine gun. So you want a couple less weapons to master, types of weapons. And then you can also, you need to learn a close range weapon, because assault rifles and submachine guns really aren't the greatest in the close range fight. You need a sword, you need a DT, you need or just any other kind of shotgun, honestly, versus an assault rifle or a submachine gun. But you really should be using the best close range weapons. And right now, at the time of this video, that's the sword, the DT, and the M10. Okay. Now, learning to survive. Surviving is probably not even a thing to you at this point in time, but what you need to work on is you really shouldn't be walking in the open. Okay, well, you're like, what is the open? Well, in this game, you can die in 1.5 seconds or less, honestly, depending on the weapon and how far you are away from the enemy. So that means you can die in 1.5 seconds. If you are exposed, like you're ground walking in the open street or in the middle of plains, like on the floor, and everyone can see you, let's say someone sees you and you're walking in the open. You have literally 1.5 seconds to walk behind some hard cover. Well, if you're in the wide open or in the middle of the street, you ain't going to get across the street in 1.5 seconds, all right? So what I mean by, unless you really know how to move and build efficiently. So you really need to understand that, okay, I can die in 1.5 seconds, so I shouldn't be walking across the street unless I look both ways across the street and I know it's safe, right? So very important skill. You don't have to master how to survive yet, because that's something that the pros still work on, but you do need to be aware that how fast you can die in this game to a good player. And if you just take that 1.5 second rule into your head, then you will play safer and play smarter and probably die a lot less easy, okay? Now, in this stage, you really should be learning how to quickly switch between weapons and build. each one of those things. I actually didn't learn how to switch weapons until like a year in quickly, which is hilarious, but that one's not as important as switching between weapons in your build, but still it's a really, really important skill to have, okay? Switching between your things quickly. It's good to be organized, have everything in the same spot. I put my close range weapon in this spot on my wheel, my weapon switch wheel. I put my mid-range one here, I put my long-range one here, etc. Really, you gotta get organized with your loadout. And then you should learn how to familiarize yourself with build a little bit, as in there's no way you're going to master build 1 to 30, but just learn how to use it. Put it up preemptively to take some damage. Remember, build is like extra health. For example, if you put one piece of build up, all the damage it shot, all the damage it absorbed from the enemy's bullets would have gone into yourself, right? So you can think of that as a lot of extra health if you don't get shot with the bullets and you put a wall up instead. Just remember that. Very important. So we are spending probably the most time on these bottom tiers, right? And that's because most of the player base, and definitely most of the viewer player base we have here, are in these lower levels. We'll go through this a lot faster with the upper tiers. So the casual is the next phase, and this is typically levels 30 to max, okay? And now 30 to max is a large range, right? I'm not focused on level because some people could come from other first-person shooter experience that they have in other games, so it just depends here, but generally levels 30 to max. Now, what the casual really is they're a good player with good fundamentals, but they struggle against sweats, and they use that term often, sweats. Like, what is a sweat, right? Well, sweats are like, players that are good, right? And they play sweaty, right? If you don't understand that terminology, but they complain about sweats, and this is, the reason is because they lose to all the other stages of this progression, okay? Which is essentially, you could label everything after this stage as a sweat if you wanted to. But what do they have in terms of skills? Well, they probably have good aim, good movement, decent use of builds, not probably great builds, or they probably would be a sweat, particularly in public games, because in public games, if you know how to build like a Fortnite player, just as an example, then you can do extremely well, all right, if you knew how to build and move like a Fortnite player. But if they knew how to do that, they probably wouldn't be labeled the casual stage here. Now here they probably have decent map awareness. They understand certain places where that they should and should not be, but they still die to the sweat sometimes very quickly because they still put themselves in positions that they shouldn't be in, and then they're still learning tactics. And what I mean by that, well, the tactics is a general term. There's so many things they need to learn, and we'll talk about that in a second. And here they could have decent or no teamwork. The reason why I say that is this meta is really evolving. In public games, you see so much more teamwork than you did a few months ago. Okay, and I like that because Big Box is totally pushing this game to more of a tactical, team-based game. It's so obvious to see from what this game was a year ago, okay? I didn't have to get any inside information to have that. So what I'm telling you is here you really have a variety of people who are kind of stuck in this stage. Most people who are watching this video, even you are probably in this stage. This is probably 50% of the player base. I'm just totally throwing that out there. It's probably not accurate, but this is a lot of people. It might even be more than this. In terms of my progression thing that I have here for you, this is probably an honest 75, maybe even 80% of the player base. Okay, right here. So we're going to spend a couple more minutes here than the others because of how many people are in here, particularly what to work on. Okay, in this area, you're probably good at all weapons, you're okay with all weapons, but you don't excel in one of the weapons. What I mean by that, well, when you run into a sweat and you're using the same weapon, usually you die in those battles, right? And that's not a good thing. So what you really need to work on is mastery here, and I mean true mastery. Okay, using it in a public game, that's on it, and you're killing people who ground walk. That's not mastery. Okay, mastery is you are using this weapon to kill other players past this progression phase. That is mastery. And it's funny because all these terms are subjective. Decent, good, mastery, right? And it's hard to judge how you label each of these things unless you know who the best players in the world are at these different kinds of things, if that makes sense. And so when I say master, I mean like, okay, that's not like knowing how to reload as fast as possible and knowing how to have good aim. No, I mean mastery, as in, okay, when I'm peeking with this weapon, I'm getting this much damage. I know that he's going to be behind cover, so I can't use this weapon because he's going to peek me with, that weapon. And this is not a good gun against a peeker, so I need to switch to a weapon that can, like my Sako, or I just need to build and charge my DT. Like, you have to really master the weapon, as in know which situation each weapon is used in. As I said before, Big Box continues to make changes to this game to make this more of a tactical game, including the weapons. They are nerfing and buffing weapons and altering weapons to ensure that each weapon, well, not every single weapon, but a weapon has a niche. It's supposed to be used in a certain situation, okay? And if you don't understand that, we are going to make a tier list eventually once things settle, but you really have to understand that each weapon has a very different use. And AWP is really meant for the long range when the person is not expecting it or when a person is peeking. Yes, you can use it in public games and you can shoot people who are ground walking in the open, but using it against good players, when a good player, honestly even past this stage, knows you're looking at them with an op, they are not standing still, hopefully, to get shot by an op with you. They're varying up their movement patterns, so you have a problem predicting where they are. They're building, they're flying, behind hard cover. Like, they know, most people after this stage, particularly on the higher end of these stages, know how to not get hit by that second op shot. What I mean, the second op shot. Okay, let's say you have an op. You're looking at someone. You take one shot, you hit them. By the time you get that second op shot, a good player is already built up or ran away or hit or whatever. But yes, you can kill people in public games with 2 op shots, but really that doesn't happen at high level play unless you double op shot, as in 2 players shoot an op shot at the same time and time it. And that's why timing is so important. The op shots, the countdown, they call it at that level. But you really have to master certain weapons. Here, I would recommend you master a long-range weapon at least, 1 or 2 mid-range weapons, so you have a couple different situations and options to work with. Because in pub games, sometimes you just got to use what you got, especially on the hot drop. I honestly don't recommend you hot drop if you're at this stage, to be honest. So close range, I would only choose 1 here because it's not familiarity anymore. You're already past that point where you know all the weapons, but you have to master it. You have to be able to use, if you're going to choose a DT, yes, it's nice to shoot the noobs, the people below, or the other casuals, but if you pick up a DT and you fight someone else on this list or on this progression stage, you're probably going to lose, right? Unless you truly master it. How do you master it? Train in the training park. Do custom runs with other good players at this level or beyond. Learn. Watch videos, right? We have YouTube videos on how to master some of these weapons. You gotta really, if you dare use a DT, for example, against someone who's been using a DT for a year and uses it every day for 3 hours, and yes, there are some people who do this, I know many of them, then what chance do you have if you only play, a couple hours a week and, the DT requires that kind of high skill cap to compete? You're better off, for example, using an M10. And I'm telling most people that these days, just use an M10, because these people that I know at the best in the world level, you got no chance of fighting them with a DT when they are the masters at it. Like, because it is that kind of weapon where it requires that high skill cap. The M10 does not require that high of a skill cap. So you can be like, you probably think you're doing better with the DT because because everyone says a DT is good. But in all seriousness, if you had an M10, for example, you'd be doing better than your current skill level with the DT, and against better players is what I really mean. So efficient use of loot. So I see a lot of casuals when they play, they don't use everything in their loadout. Okay, they usually die before using everything in their loadout. What do I mean by that? They might have had a grenade or a frag grenade, bananas, shield sodas, and none of that stuff was used, or not all of that stuff was used before they died. Professionals and onwards, I'm totally spoiling, but the later 2 tiers of this list always utilize all of their resources before they die. Okay, so if you don't know, at the highest level of play, when you loot someone's corpse, there's usually never anything on it. Okay, and I know in public games you can like never loot, right? Because like there's always noobs who carries like 100 build and 500 ammo, but that doesn't happen in professional games unless a team just got caught off guard or something and just got squeezed by multiple teams. Usually you don't have much to work with, so you have to really understand how to use loot efficiently and get a lot of it too. And I know in public games that's usually not an issue, but if you're ever looking to get past the casual stage, it really is an issue. Right? And so use all of your stuff before you die. Use all of your build before you die. You better use all your bananas use all your build before you die. You better, know how to eat bananas fast, which is survival skills here, and use them, and you better pop all your shield sodas before you die. That should also be a rule. If you carry shield sodas, you better have used them before you died. Shield shakers, it's usually impossible to get a shield shaker off in close range. Not impossible, but very, very difficult to get shield shakers off in close range. So once you're in the close range, you're screwed. But you should always, and I mean always, be able to get your shield sodas off before you die. So 2 rules here for survival skills and efficient use of loot. Use all your build before you die, and use all your sodas before you die. Usually, a lot of people have heard me say use all your build, but you probably haven't heard me say use all your sodas. Use all your sodas before you die. That is why they are better than shield shakers. Now, getting to the next one, learning to push and charge. At this stage, you probably just, have good aim, and noobs and other casuals just walk in the open, and all you have to do is hold your little hard cover, peek out, as in rotate out, look out, shoot them, come back down to your hard cover, and they probably just walk in the open and die. Okay, but this is not a thing at any stage past this. People just walk, and even if you know how to peek, I see everyone saying, "Oh, peeking's so overpowered," and "Oh my God, that guy was peeking." Well, I hate to break it to you, peeking doesn't kill players past this stage that well, because they know you're peeking and they don't walk in the open to get shot by you while they're peeking. What do? They know there's ways to deal with peekers. You have grenades, you have ops, AWP, you have a Socko to shoot the head peek, or you have teammates. You tell the team, okay, I got that peeker pinned there, rotate on that dude who's solo, or his teammates are way over there, right? Or just I've got him pinned, rotate on that peeker. There's so many ways to deal with peekers, and we'll have a whole video on that for sure. But there's so many things you have to learn here, and that's why it's hard to learn all these skills. First off, but you got to know how to push, and that is pushing, right? Pushing the peekers. And you also have to learn how to charge, okay? Charging is different than peeking. In my mind, charge means you go all in and you got to go fast. Pushing usually means like a slower kind of thing where you're, like I mentioned before, you're pushing the peeker, you're rotating on that peeker, but you really got to know how to charge as well. Because good players know that you're pushing them, and usually they rotate to safety, right? Or they call their teammates. So sometimes, for example, when that person is solo, that good player, because everyone after this stage is a good player, is peeking on you, and you got 2 or 3 teammates, you better charge him with all 3 people, because he's really not got a good chance of killing all 3 of you with how the weapons are these days, if you're all competent at the game, right, and know how to do it, charge somewhat safely. So those are skills that casuals really, really got to work on, pushing and charging. We do have videos for that, but that's something everyone's still working on. But this is probably something that you really need to learn at this stage, how to push and charge. Push solo and charge solo, and push and charge as a team. Both things are not the same thing, right? Those require different tactics. I know that sounds really complicated. You might not know what I'm talking about. That's okay. That's the whole point of this channel. We're learning all these things. Now, the next thing you have to learn is, yes, close range and long range skills. You've probably seen me put out recently a lot of close range skill videos, because I'm still working on my close range. Everyone's always working on their close range, because in the close range you die so fast, and the skill cap in the close range is so high because of the DT, to be honest, but a lot of other skills you need to know. And so one slip up, you're dead. And someone who has a lot more skills in the close range is usually going to win versus the person who has less skills or tactics in the close range. I'm kind of mixing that term skills and tactics kind of interchangeably in this item. But you also are probably learning how to build here. Here's a tip. for all these stages onwards, you don't have to be a master with build. Like, you don't really have to know how to Fortnite build. And that's a really cool thing. From this stage onwards, yes, Fortnite building is great in public games, and the next stage is going to do that. But to be honest with you, that's not as important as just learning how to survive. When one person goes down on a team, even in a public game, the dynamic is very scary because a 3v2 is so much harder than a 3v3, okay? And particularly as we get further down on these stages. So surviving is honestly more important than Fortnite building. So build to survive is my recommendation at this level. And again, this is probably most of you at this level, okay? So take good note of this level and the next one, because this is probably what you're going to have to do to get past that wall you're stuck at. So now we're at the Pub Stomper, okay? This one's kind of a difficult one because the Pub Stomper, there's so many ways you can Pub Stomp, all right? But first off, this player is typically labeled as a sweat by like the Facebook crowd, and this is the kind of like I get on Facebook here and there occasionally these days, and I look at all these posts about people complaining about these named people, like, oh my god, who's the scariest person, and they put all these names, and the funny thing to me is that most of those names that come up aren't the best players in the world, because casual players don't see the best players in the world in public games. The best players in the world really usually, not all of them, there's always exceptions, usually don't even play public games because the best players in the world usually are so busy with competitive games that they have no time for public games, and the public games are too easy for them. So it's just really funny to me that this term, the sweat, and the people who are scary on Facebook. But looking at this type of player, this could also be the levels 30 through max. The career win rate could be somewhere, above or at or around 25% for the whole career, and this is assuming this is someone who started on an account where you had to learn and lost. You didn't just start a new account and kill a bunch of noobs and you're at a high win rate percentage, right? Now, here, this type of Pub Stomper usually will only lose to the last stages of the players, as in this stage and all the stages after this, and that should have been 3 stages, sue me, bad with math and I'm Asian, whatever. So, but this player typically only loses to other Pub Stompers or anyone after this stage, okay? And this kind of Pub Stomper, there's 2 ways to Pub Stomp in my mind. As I was saying before, there's really 2 types: the solo Pub Stomper and the full squad stomp. What I mean by that, there's someone who's so high skilled, and usually they don't work as a team in public games at least, and they just go in charge and they're able to kill people because they have so great weapon skills, great aim, good movement, good use of builds, but they don't work as a team or have any team tactics or anything like that, probably because they don't even need to, because they're stomping pubs. Because their level of competition is that high, unless they run into a full squad of people who are also stomping pubs, and those are the Pub Stompers as well, because this is a different type of breed. This type of Pub Stompers, or these type of Pub Stompers, Q is 3. They've been playing together for months, if not a year or more, whatever. They know each other. They know each other's strengths and weaknesses. They know how to complement each other's strengths and weaknesses. This is also, by the way, this step is a decent amount of the player base as well. If I said the other stage was about 80%, 75%, whatever. Maybe Noobs is I don't know. Well, whatever. There's no percentage. I can't percentage this. But this is also a decent amount of people, these Pub Stompers. These might be the clan squads that you see in the public lobbies, with clan tags that are quite scary. But this is the real game, right? We're not judging people who full squad Pub Stomp or even solo Pub Stomp, right? It's all part of the game. That's what this game's meant for. This is a team-based game. I hate to break it to you. So team-based tactics is a dang thing, and there's no one right way to do this. So now, what does people in these stages need to work on? Well, like I said, you either have the 2 breeds. You have the breed who just goes in and just has good aim and movement, and they're probably just happy because their skill, their weapon skills, and all these skills are so high that they don't need a team, and they'll never need one because pubs are so generally easy, unless they run into those other players that are at stage 4 and beyond, or they run into that full squad. But then they always preserve their ego by saying, "Oh, they queued as a full squad, whatever," all that kind of excuses. But they don't need to get better because the game doesn't require them to. Now, that being said, I think the meta is changing because I think people are learning how to work together better in public games. So I think you're seeing a lot less of these solo pub stompers that are solely at this level and not at the later stages, okay? So what I mean by that, these kind of pub stompers at this stage are the ones who, like, don't play competition games and just play pubs, and, like, they might have these wonderful stats sometimes, but when they go and they play competition, they get their asses kicked, all right? And so there's, like, the pub stomper, that's the solo pub stomper, and that's a cool thing because they have these high skills. So what do those people need to work on? They need to work on their team tactics, probably their tactics in general, because you can't charge any of the stages 4 and beyond the same way you can the casuals and the noobs or the other pub stompers. So, like, you got to know how to team play, because this is a team game. Squads, team 3. All right. Now, the full squad, what they need to work, and they need to work on the opposite skills. They need to work on that good movement, good aim, good use of builds, whatever. Like, if you already have great teamwork, you probably need to be working on your weaknesses versus your strengths. This is, like I said, a big population community, and a lot of people I know in this level. You really need to work on your weaknesses. Don't just work on your strengths. Work on your weaknesses too. But again, efficient use of time. Don't use a DT if if you're at this level, you know what the best in the world players are doing with DTs. If you can't see yourself in a reasonable amount of time, with using a DT and getting to that level with a DT, don't even use a damn DT. I'm serious. Use an M10, use a sword. You can use sword in public games. Maybe even use Matadors over the DT. That might even be better if you have gold ones. But, like, to do, like, all the time to kill videos and all that stuff I do with the DT and all that, like, that is assuming you're shooting the DT like me. And, like, there's, like, people in public games usually don't shoot the DT like that, okay? So what I'm saying is, stay away from the DT if you're stuck at this level and you were trying to pick up the DT because everyone said it's a cool weapon to learn, but, like, for real, stay away from it. You got to master survival skills, all right? And it's hard to do that because in public games, survival skills, you really don't need mastery level survival skills. And, like, you're probably like, oh, my survival skills are fine, because you haven't really experienced what I mean by mastery survival skills. Like, I'm really going to shy away from saying names of certain players. Just, I don't want to have to call people out, or at the same time, other people are going to be, why didn't you mention my name, friends, and all that? So, like, you've seen people eat bananas in, like, 0.5 seconds and build Fortnite and all that kind of thing. You don't necessarily need to go to that extreme, but you do need to have excellent survival skills, because anything after stage 4 and on, when one team member dies, because we're going to get into competition after the next stages, your whole team is usually dead after one team member dies. So surviving is usually more important than getting the kill. Remember that. That's a great tip to know. And that goes in the same for public games. You don't risk going for that one kill if it puts you in a low percentage of survival. Yes, in a public game you can get away with it a lot of time, but if you're looking to improve, like, beyond this stage, you can't get away with those kinds of things, okay? So you have to know how to survive. If I really want to in a public game, I can, like, never die. Particularly if I'm with a squad of 3. But, like, I used to be known, like, for, like, saying, oh, Pink Pony, she never dies. Like, and, on stream, when I stream public games, I play, more entertainingly, because it's not fun to, see, like, the survival kind of play if I'm never risking anything. But I can play so calculated in a public game that I'll never die, unless, obviously I run in a full squad of people of this level or beyond, right? That's always hard. But, like, it's survival is a serious skill to learn. Period. All right. Watch the better players. Watch streams. See what they do. Watching the fastest people play sometimes isn't usually the best thing, because you probably can't move and think and operate that fast. So watch, a variety of play styles at the best level, and then see which one you can adapt. Is my recommendation. Building mastery is really just related to survival. Now, here's a tip for you. Okay, for all you people at this level and beyond. Fortnite building used to be the meta in this game. This is really important. What do I mean by that? If you could build like a Fortnite style, like you're building this fortress up and all that, and people used to do that for a year and a half, it was excellent, and you could even do that in competition, the highest level, and it would be really exciting. That is no longer the meta at the highest level of gameplay anymore. What do I mean by that? If you watch streams of shoutcasts of the highest level of gameplay, the best in the world play, you don't see people building like Fortnite anymore. Why? Because of hitscan. Hitscan changed this goddamn game in a way that I don't like personally, but it's what we got to deal with. You can't rely on build anymore because guns hit build so goddamn fast. So if 3 people are spraying a build with submachine guns, even if it's not the best one submachine gun like a P90, you're going to break build faster than someone can build, which is kind of shitty because before you could build and survive, so it was really about this exciting movement skills that you needed to have to be at the highest level. But this is maybe a good thing because this means you don't have to have the skills to be at the highest level, but you do need to know how to survive with build. You don't need to know how to Fortnite with build, but you have to know how to survive with build, okay? So that's what I mean by mastering build. Now at this stage, you really got to learn serious tactics. And when I mean tactics on this line, I mean solo skill tactics and team tactics. And the only way you can do that is if you play against better players you play in lobbies that are all better players. Because when I play in public games, even I go against casual players or noobs, and like I build all these bad habits because I can get away with it. I'm a lazy player. If I don't have to work harder, like I won't work harder. Like I don't need to be, styling on people all day. So like if I can be lazy and just rely on my aim, I'm going to be realizing and just lay on my aim. I might put myself in a bad situation, and then I build those habits and I take it in against the players after these later stages, and I die, or these phases. And so like, join competition, get started in it because like it makes you so much of a better player because it penalizes you for making mistakes in the harshest way possible, instant death. So now we're going to progress a little faster because we're getting to a smaller percentage of the player base, but this level particularly is probably a lot of my viewers here. Okay, the comp bottom. I'm sorry if that's a little insulting. I thought it would be a little entertaining, but the comp bottom is the beginner comp player. They think public games are easy, particularly when they're squatted with their comp team, and it should be, that's why they're at this stage. They're beyond the pub stomping. They are pub stompers, obviously, but they're past that, and they're doing probably not good in competition. Like they might be getting totally stomped, and it's really hurtful to the ego and your pride, and it's so funny because we've all been here. Well, not we've all, but all the people who've played comp usually have been here. Like you're killing it in public games. This game's too easy, and you finally get into a competitive game against good players like the veteran comp players and the people beyond this stage, and you get totally wrecked, and you go, what the hell happened? And you go, screw comp, screw it. A lot of people quit at this stage because you get so absolutely wrecked here. And so that's why we call it the comp bottom. But here, you're really happy, and your goal is, and it should be, to make it to the semifinals or finals. Always good to have realistic goals here, right? But this is such a hard stage here because when I started comp even, this was, some people will have a better transition. You might even skip this stage. Maybe if your skill levels are just that damn high. I didn't skip this stage because you will probably even jump back to this stage when you get better in the higher tiers, and all of a sudden you're at the top tiers, the diamond tier equivalents of all the leagues. Then you might even jump back to this stage because you're getting so absolutely wrecked. Because there's I've seen so many people who just start comp or they just play against the best players in the world, and they were killing it in pubs. A lot of streamers too, even, and they go wow. I didn't realize that the top tier competition, Diamond, I used to call it Diamond because ARC, which was the biggest comp league if you don't know at the time, the highest league was Diamond. In different tiers, it's different names. In UGL, it's Tower, I believe, and in Mixed Double, it's Ice Tier. But at the highest level, the skill gap between the highest level and even the tier below it, which is still an amazing tier to be in, is extremely, extremely large. Like, you might be killing it, for example, in some leagues where there's like 4 tiers, you're killing it in the bottom 3 tiers, and you go all the way up to the second to the last tier, and you're like, wow, I'm like, awesome. Like, we should be okay in the highest tier. And then you get to the highest tier, and you're getting so absolutely stomped that you honestly want to go back down a tier, even probably because it just feels good to be there. Because this skill gap, you realize that you might never be able to compete against these kind of people. These kind of people are either who are next 2 stages are either usually the really young kids with super fast reflexes, super fast intelligence, and they're just the smarter players like myself. I'm not a young kid, right? The smarter players like myself who've had a lot of gaming experience, first person shooter gaming experience, or just the teamwork level is so crazy, so high. It's not even just your individual skill. Like, their teamwork is just next level. Like, there's no way your team is ever going to get there, and that's just a harsh reality because now we're talking about the best players in the world, okay? And so it's a harsh awakening this stage, all right? So what do you need to work on here? God, you need to work on a lot of things because everyone at the highest tier is so far ahead. It's not even funny. And the problem is these days, at the time of making this video, there's no way to really practice your skills against the best players in the world because the best players in the world have exclusive invites to best player in the world scrims or practice and best player in the world competitions. So it's like, how do you get past this stage if you can't compete against the best? I unfortunately don't have an answer for that. I think the only 2 competitions that allow actually there's 3 competitions only that you can really work for to get up there. But then again, we'll never see the best players in the world, but you can make a slow progression. But it's so hard to get to stage 5 and 6 here because there's just no way to bridge this gap between stage 4 and 5 unless you play against the next 2 stages often and frequently, which is impossible to do because you'll never see them usually until you get past all the people in your level. It's tough. But here you got to work on your survival skills. Obviously, your close and your long range skills. The close range skills probably the most important because the people at the top have these crazy close range skills. So you got to have at least competent close range skills. You have to excel at either long range or close range, you have to be competent at the other. As in, you can either have excellent long range skills, so you whittle that person down, and you only need to go in with modest close range skills to finish the fight, or you can have so excellent close range skills that you can take a little bit of damage going in for that fight, and you're still going to win it. Okay, so you have to excel to get past this stage. You have to excel at one of those and be competent in the other, or excel at both, but you wouldn't be here if you did. All right, so survival skills, you really got to be able to survive against the best, and that's just hard to do. Live by a 1 second rule here. Don't walk in the open. Maybe here you don't even just walk in the open period unless you're 100% sure there ain't nobody looking. All right, and even I make this mistake sometimes. I will go in the open. I'm like, I died so free there because I was an idiot. I assumed no one was there, but there clearly was. Be very careful. Survival skills are a serious thing to work on that you'll never stop working on. Now, teamwork and communication. This is so important because even for this stage and beyond, you can't just be an excellent player with excellent aim, excellent movement, excellent build, excellent map awareness, because I hate to break to you, everyone beyond this level is excellent at all the aim, the movement, the use of builds, and the map awareness, the first 4 mastery areas. But really what separates the people in the later stages beyond this stage, aside from the weapon skills, is also the teamwork skills, okay? Everyone beyond this stage has good skills of the 4 things I mentioned, but usually they have great tactics and great teamwork. This is a team game. That's how it should be, okay? An excellent 1v1 player, in private lobbies, still is not necessarily the best in the world even sometimes, because this is a team-based game. You got to work as a team. You got to work with the same people over and over to build up these teamwork skills. You're usually better off sticking with one team for like a few months than you are swapping back and forth, trying out different players every couple weeks, which is what a lot of people at stage 5 and 6 do, because people get angry, people have egos, people argue and all that kind of stuff. So you really need to find people here who you get along with, and that's not easy because people at this level, when you're really good at something, you get all these crazy personalities, so you got to stick with the team and learn team tactics, right, to get beyond this stage. And honestly, you got to do that for this stage too, the professional stage. Now, this stage we're talking about a very, very small player base here, okay? We're really only talking about like the top 30, players here. So like this is not like we're not going to spend a lot of time, all right? So one of these players can wipe out a lobby. These people live in the top tiers of competitive leagues. Now, there's 3 types if you don't know. There's the team player, that's not like myself. There's the team player, who's usually like a support kind of player. There's the carry, and there's the hybrid. You don't necessarily have to have one of each of these things. My team does, but what I mean by that is usually there's like one carry at least, and there's like a couple team players or like a couple hybrids, but you usually have to have at least one carry. It means one person who's usually got those excellent top tier skills with certain weapons, right? Or you have hybrids, but you need at least one carry. So that's usually how the dynamic works at this level. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because everyone at this level, who's only like 30, 40 people, knows this already. But this is just good for everyone else to learn. Now, like I said, they're great at many things, but either or here, which is kind of why there's like great plus, in aim or movement, and great plus in tactics or teamwork. It's because you're either excellent, superb at aim or movement, or you're usually excellent at team tactics or teamwork, or you have the hybrid that's good at both, right? But so there's these different categories here. A little harder to lump these kind of things together, but clearly these skills are so high, versus all the other phases or progressions here. Now here, what this stage really needs to work on, if any of you 30 or 40 actually stuck around to this stage, I would be very surprised. Good on you. But if you're wondering how to get past this stage and get to that point where you're consistently like at the top of all the leagues, it's about the teamwork. Like I said in the last one, it really is, y'all. I see so many of y'all swapping teams, swapping players, arguing with each other, in the lobbies, arguing at other people even. Like, that's not the right mentality to have here. This is like when you make a mistake, you learn from it. You learn from it as a team. Yes, I'm not always nice to all my teammates, but I try to be, but you have to have a team that doesn't mind suffering together a little bit, so you can build and work on your weaknesses and strengths together. Okay, and this is a team game. This isn't a 1v1 competition. There aren't 1v1 competitions usually that are really well regarded versus the squads. It's a squad-based game, so you really gotta get with the squad that you stick with. I see so many squads break up here and there, but the longer you stick together with the same teammates, the better you will get as a team to make it to this next level, which is really the GOATs. But then, again, this level is kind of whimsical between the last one. It kind of blends together with the last one as well, because you can be a GOAT without having... You can be GOATs at a variety of things. So what do I mean by GOAT? Greatest of all time, all right? You can be a greatest of all time with either aim or with your tactics or with your map awareness or with your teamwork. But usually these kind of GOATs are not GOATs at everything. Usually they're GOATs at certain aspect or certain masteries areas here. And I know it says 6 masteries. There's only 4 I'm really referring to here. Usually they're either the greatest in the world at teamwork, the greatest in the world at tactics and map awareness, which kind of goes hand in hand, or they're the greatest at the aim or the close range skills. They excel at one thing here. They're the best at one thing, and that's why they're greatest of all time. Best here. There's only 1 or 3 for each of these kinds of things I'm talking about, right? The close range tactics. I could name 3 people that are the best at that. That's definitely not me, the close range tactics. But the teamwork and the team tactics, I would certainly rank myself best 1 through 3, top 3 somewhere in there, okay? So what I'm saying is there's best here at different things that can lead to success in the highest level of competitive play. Yes, you need to have, obviously excellent weapon skills and all that kind of stuff, but to win competitions. It's not just always about the best aim and the best weapon skills, okay? And particularly since Big Box keeps making this game a tactical game. They keep making changes. It just makes this more squad-oriented and tactics-based. And the sooner all of y'all, if any of you goats actually stuck around here, I shouldn't be divulging secrets trying to make y'all better because I need to compete against y'all. But really, you got to work on your teamwork. I really mean it, to keep improving. You've already mastered, your DT. Don't stop it. Stop it. Work on your teamwork, your tactics. But you don't have to listen to me because I want to keep beating you. So don't listen to me. So what do you need to work on? Well, like I was just saying, you need to work on your weaker master errors, and you really should take a breather and think about what those are if you want to get better. But I can't imagine many goats stuck around this long anyways in this video. So yay for me. But team tactics, like I said. Now skill maintenance. If you don't know, for all of y'all who aren't at this level, to stay at this level and get to this level, you need to be training like 2 hours a day against the best players in the world, or 1 hour a day against the best players in the world, but probably two to 3 hours total of practice, 5 days a week to be able to stay at this level, okay? And you'll notice a lot of the best players in the world, when you're at this level, if they don't play for like a month, they try and come back and they're out of it. Now, some people it only takes like a couple days to get back into it. Some people it takes a couple weeks. It just depends on the player. But like to stay here at this level really requires a lot of time and commitment. And that's why the goats are, even though it's as greatest of all time, it's really temporary goats. They're like goats for a little bit, and then new goats come in. Like it always cycles, and so it's hard to stay here. But if you stuck around that long, good on you. I hope you learned something from this video. I definitely think there's tips for everyone at all levels in this video. Some of this stuff might be intuitive. Some of it might not be. But please, leave in the comments below what you think you are and whether you think these comments were helpful for you. And most importantly, leave comments down below for your stage on how you think you can, help other people in your stage or help people in below. Thank you all for watching.